Welcome back to Panda, everyone. Before we get to tonight's topic, we have something we need to address. And of course, I ran this by Kelly. He is fully aware and comfortable with everything I'm about to say, co-signs every last word of it. You can tell by his face. We are on the same page here. Something happened in this country recently, as of the time we're recording this in the last few days. The President of the United States has officially declared that I, as a doctor, am Jesus.
Yeah, I was seeing the connection there because it was like because I was going to mention, and if we go back to I don't know, I believe this was Snark Alec Radio days. I believe on two separate shows, I may have said something along the lines of I, much like Jesus, and then finished whatever it was. So between that commentary and your fake doctordom, that particular piece of AI imagery seemed to pull it all together. It's almost like a Bog Panda commercial.
Might as well be. That's not what we're here to talk about. I didn't want to gloat too much about my obvious promotion, but just make sure everybody understands I accept my role as a Jesus walking around, and you guys are welcome. But we're here tonight to talk about tapes. Kelly, are you a cassette guy?
I certainly was back in the day pretty significantly. Um, I tried unsuccessfully. I think I got about halfway to the door of seeing Frank Zappa at the Notre Dame ACC and was attempting to bring in a large old school tape recorder to kind of record the contract. But that's not something you can kind of sneak in. And I realized about halfway through to say, this isn't going to make it through any sort of security. So I took it back to the car. But beyond that, I am quite the tape guy.
Nice. Nice. Have you been listening to tapes recently?
So set up some kind of additional stereo stuff downstairs, which included I wanted to kind of check out the cassette tape option. And my test tape was going to be Two Boy Army, Gary Newman's Two Boy Army. And first song played great. And then that 20 plus year old tape had apparently degraded and was sadly no longer working. But I wasn't able to switch over to Lou Reed's Coney Island Baby and enjoy it there. So not that long ago, I heard just a little bit of Gary Newman, Two Boy Army, and a lot of Coney Island Baby.
Funny you say that because I got to see Gary Newman live recently. It was an excellent show. I am a little surprised though that you haven't been listening to the Rust Belt on cassette, sir.
That goes without saying. I mean, that's on 7 by 24.
But yeah, no, I love cassettes. In fact, going all the way back to the very first episode of this show, back when it was called Squat Cobbler, my recommendation, because we were a recommendation show, a trilogy, 3 episode recommendation show. My recommendation was a cassette tape back on our very first episode. So in recent years, cassettes have picked up steam beyond just the small collectors things or oddities that local bands will do. It's not the same as like the way that vinyl has come back, and vinyl is by far the most consumed physical media now for music by an insane mile. I know once a year everybody's like CDs are coming back, and then it doesn't. That's just because it's usually tied to some big tent pole release, and they put that out on CD, and all the fans run out and buy it. So like more recently, it would have been the Taylor Swift album. She released 40 different bundles of her album with physical copies with different bonus tracks on them, leading many fans to buy multiple copies of the album. So it artificially drove CD sales up. Believe me, if anybody wants CDs to come back, it's any artist because CDs are so much cheaper to manufacture than any other kind of physical media for music. Cassettes are more expensive than CDs, and vinyl is insane. Most bands can't afford to do vinyl. So that's when like I made it. when my stuff regularly comes out on vinyl now. That's when I knew I had done it. I remember early in our career, there was this smear piece in a small newspaper, and they had somebody holding up a vinyl record, and it was a picture disc. And I was like, the craziest part about this is we could never afford to make that record they're claiming is ours. But cassettes, I've always been a fan of. I made it a point to go all out for the cassette for the first Rust Belt album. We've mentioned on here before, as you guys can see, it is a laser etched cover instead of printed cover art. It also, we have special cassettes in there. They're an opaque white cassette. The manufacturer, who's in Canada for these, actually uses this on the website now as like a packaging option that you can get. So you can, if you're in a band, get the Rust Belt package to get an album that looks like this. Um, the cassettes have been making a big comeback, mostly for soundtracks for things. Marvel with the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtracks, Netflix for the Stranger Things soundtracks and things like that. It's really been pushing cassettes back. So most artists now do some sort of a cassette run with it. The problem is cassette players are trash. Most cassette players that are available now are not good. So there's this thought that cassette players or cassettes in general are bad. That's not the case. It's the materials like anything else. As cassettes grew in popularity, they started using cheaper and cheaper tape materials. They also started making cheaper and cheaper plastic shells for them. They moved away from welded shells and things like that to cheaper plastic that just snaps together. So it breaks apart easier. They're using cheaper and cheaper tape. It wears out quicker. It doesn't sound as good to start with. They also started using faster tape copying, which you lose a ton of audio quality when you do that. So instead of copying tape to tape in real time, it would do a fast process. You get more tapes done, but you lose tons of clarity when you do that. So all that stuff started to happen. So the quality of tapes started to drop down the more popular they got. And that's what people remember. And if you get a cassette player today, for the most part, everything is made out of plastic instead of metal like it used to be. With a lot of cheaper tapes that are out there, they don't sound great. But because of the rise in popularity, companies like We Are Rewind have started making high-end cassette players, portable cassette players, made out of Earth's most precious material, aluminum. So these things will cost you your soul, your firstborn, blood, everything you can imagine in there. And a lot of the bigger companies have started. Maxwell, who were one of the probably right after Sony with the Walkman, the Maxwell portable cassette player was one of the more popular ones. They've announced they're re-releasing that. Sony has done an update of their Walkman, but We Are Rewind has probably been the most popular one, with it being made out of God's greatest gift to humanity, aluminum. That has been the one that people are going for, and it is for a portable cassette player insanely expensive. I believe it's about 100, depending on the version you get, because there's different models. I believe it runs about 160 to $200, depending on the model that you get. That's crazy for cassette player. Conversely, though, like I said, you can go on Amazon and get a portable cassette player for $20. It's going to sound terrible. So that's the trade-off there. So in the midst of all this, a company called FIO, who make parts for stereos and things like that, made their own, basically a version of what We Are Rewind is doing. The most precious metal on earth. The only thing that they sacrificed to get the price point down, it is not Bluetooth. It has an actual headphone jack. Personally, for me, I would prefer that. And record onto it, although everybody I know who's bought one of the We Are Rewind ones that you won't want to record on it, even though you technically can. The recording quality is very poor. So they dropped all that stuff, and it comes in at about half the price of the We Are Rewind. So I got the blue edition. It is the FIO CP13. This is very popular. These keep selling out on Amazon now. Again, they're about 70 to $80 if you can catch them on sale. They're about 80 normally. I got it for 70 on a sale. So about half the price of the We Are Rewind, less than half the price of their higher end models. Again, you are sacrificing Bluetooth, but it's about the same size as that, maybe a little bit smaller, but bigger than older cassette players used to be, and much, much heavier because, again, it's made out of God's precious metal. So it does make a difference when you're holding it. I remember what cassette players used to feel like when you clip it onto your belt and go mow the lawn or whatever. You wouldn't want to do that with this. This is hefty. You're putting this in a hoodie pocket or something like that to go for a walk. Where this shines, though, you might be thinking you don't want to give up things like the Bluetooth, but where this shines is the problem with all cassette players right now is they don't manufacture the parts for them, not the metal ones that they used to, even though these have metal outer casings. So everything inside, even on the We Are Rewind ones, is plastic. Theo is the first one to have a metal flywheel. The flywheel is what keeps the tape from distorting the audio. So one of the problems with the portable cassette players is as you would move them, the tape speed would increase or decrease, which would cause what they called wow and flutter. It's audio distortion. A metal flywheel greatly, greatly cuts back on that, and they're the only ones that have that. So I would take losing the Bluetooth in place of the metal flywheel any
So would these,
day.
but they also have a higher end one in their product line that
No,
does have
not
Bluetooth?
for the FIO one. If you wanted to go higher, you're going up to Wear Rewind, but you're
Okay,
losing the metal flywheel.
gotcha. Yeah, and I don't think the whole idea, particularly if you're gonna strap on a cassette player made of the rarest of earth metals, you're kind of one cassette car jack away from losing, getting rolled in your front yard and losing your tape player. So I would be cautious on that. Um, does it have like strap mounting type of things, or is it just pretty much a set it on the table kind of deal?
So as it comes out of the box, there's no mounting or anything on there, but Theo does sell like a protector case for it that has a belt clip and mounting and stuff on
Gotcha.
it. Again, I can't imagine this is kind of heavy for what it is, and that's without a tape in there. So I can't imagine it would be comfortable to wear on your belt if you're walking around somewhere. There's real weight to this. This is probably like three or four cell phones taped together kind of thing. So I can't imagine that's going to be comfortable wearing, but that case exists. Another thing that's nice too, I don't know if it picks up on here, but it does come with a little screen protector as well for the window that I put on there. Again, just a nice little touch for it. But this is metal. I haven't, not that I banged it around a lot, but I've worn it on a couple of walks. I've had no problems with it. I'm sure this is going to continue to be durable. The Rust Belt album sounds great in there. But I have a pretty good tape collection, even of newer releases and limited edition stuff that bands put out. So another episode we talked about Self-Mord from Bond. I have that on cassette. That's what I've been listening to recently. This is the one that comes with the razor blade and the uncensored cover. So Self-Mord means suicide in Norwegian, and it's a picture of Mortis cutting himself on the cover, and then on the inside you get your own razor blade. So this version of it was banned in most countries, and they did a special reissue for a box set that came out with the razor blade. So, for the kids.
Yeah, there you go. Good deal. Yeah, I'd say so. My cassette collection has dwindled over time due to just the cassettes giving it up. But I do have, as I mentioned, had Two Bay Army, not anymore. Uh, Coney Island Baby, which came in kind of the instead of kind of the typical plastic cases that cassettes came in, it was actually a cardboard case that it was encased in. Pretty cool. Um, but Lowell George's, and this will be on a future, we'd go back to doing some album prisoner exchanges, kind of towards the top of my list is Lowell George's Thanks, I'll Eat It Here. And that was a cassette back in the time when that was the music device in the car. And I had always liked Little Feat. I liked Zappa. Lil George was with him for a while. And it's a pretty outstanding album. But we'll talk more about that on a future show. Great.
Nice. I would definitely like to do a couple more music reviews, and we still have an Alice review that we have to do.
We have an Alice review. We've got all kinds of Beasto Blanco reviews. We've got to kind of get rolling on some of those. So we will. Don't worry. We're Bog Panda never closes. 7 by 24, folks. We'll get to it at some point.
The
Ignore the
bog is
fact
always
that what's that?
the bog is always open.
Bog is always open. There's a T-shirt. Cool. Excellent. So we'll include a link to it, although it sounds like it sells out some on so you know, give it a shot and enjoy it. Anything else, sir?
No, if you like cassettes at all or interested in buying some of the newer albums that are on cassette, I would definitely go with one of these higher end ones. Whether you decide on We Are Rewind, whether you go with the Maxwell one or the Fio, again, only one with a metal flywheel. So this is the one I recommend. And it's right in the middle price wise and about half the cost of We Are Rewind. So I go with this one. But whichever one you decide to go with, you are going to spend a little bit of money if you want good sound quality. There are cheaper ones you can get for $20, $30. They do not sound good. They're all plastic. There's tons of warping in the audio and things like that. It's just not a great experience. So if you're serious about it or collecting cassettes, that's the way you want to go.
Makes sense. So we'd like everybody to like and subscribe. I'll give you a moment to do that. We'll wait. And thanks for watching, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bog Panda.